Good morning. I'm actually early today. All right, let me turn on all the appropriate places. All right, we're set. Good morning. Hello. Happy Friday. Happy Venus Day. Happy Lover's Day. We are on day 30 of the Abundance book. Day 30 of the 40-day prosperity plan, if you will. We're using the Abundance book by John Randolph Price. And good morning. Good morning. If you don't know who I am, my name is Debbie Maisha, and I am the Sensual Energy Alchemist. I am a teacher of, I'm about to give y'all my old tagline. I am a master life coach, a teacher of sacred sexuality, and my business, Sensual Energy Alchemy, LLC, reconnects Black women to their freedom, their sovereignty, and their power through their sensuality and their pleasure. Hey, good morning. I'm a little discombobulated this morning. I'm on here earlier, than I normally am. Good morning, y'all. Good morning. Glad to have you on. Glad to have you popping in. All right, so we are doing day 30. Today, 30. I have to take my nail polish off, so I'm trying to put my hands in the camera this morning. Day 30, which is statement 10. And as I was good morning, as I was reading through it, and I do have some more magical stuff that I want to talk to y'all about, and so we'll do that in combination with some of the more realistic things for the last set of 10 statements. We've got 10 more days to go after this, and then it would have been 40 days. As I was reading the statement this morning and running my fingers across it and thinking about some of the current situations that I'm brewing through, it felt like a good time to revisit who do you need to be in order to live abundantly, but to revisit it from a different lens. So that's what we're going to do this morning before I need to run off. All right, statement 10. I keep my mind and thoughts off this world, and I place my entire focus on God within as the only cause of my prosperity. I acknowledge the inner presence as the only activity in my financial affairs, as the substance of all things visible. I place my faith in the principle of abundance in action within me. I'm going to read it again. I keep my mind and thoughts off this world, and I place my entire focus on source energy within as the only cause of my prosperity. I acknowledge the inner presence as the only activity in my financial affairs, as the substance of all things visible. I place my faith in the principle of abundance in action within me. So this morning, as I was going through my process of how I write and read the statements, this idea of who do we need to be to live this abundant life really was coming to me. And are we willing to change? Are we willing to change and grow to become that person? Change is inevitable. And part of the dance of being human is this space where we don't want anything to change. We want everything to stay exactly the same. But with awareness, we also recognize that everything changes, seasons, everything. Are we willing to shift who we think we are in order to create this life of abundance? And I say who you think you are because we all grew up hearing the, I think, therefore I am statement. And it's really, I am, and therefore I think. I am here, and therefore I think. Who you think you are is an amalgamation of your cultural, societal, spiritual, religious beliefs, your traumas, your pains, your joys. That's who you think you are. What these statements are telling us is I am a piece of source energy. That is who I am. Any other thing after that is a choice. So there are many of us, especially in the Black community, who we have been through such horrific trauma. If you are, well, I mean, in any on any side of the hemisphere at this point, between chattel slavery and colonialism, so much of what we had and who we were has been decimated. But especially for those of us who landed, our ancestors landed or were brought to what became the United States of America, more than in the Caribbean, we were stripped of our language, our name, our culture, our religion. We were kidnapped and amnesia took place. And what happens in situations like that is there is a need to cling to what you do have because it's all you got. You have no memory of what family was before that. You're going to cling to the culture you have or have created out of that situation. And you're going to hold on to it so tightly as is the human way because it's what you've got. If the culture that you're clinging tightly to, if the traditions that you're clinging tightly to out of a sense of belonging, um, a sense of loyalty, and none of these things are wrong. This is where this is exploration. Okay, so I'm not here saying like throw out everything, but if you find that your desire for abundance or a different life is bumping up against the expectations of culture, you might need to re-examine some things. So, for instance, good morning over on Instagram. So, for instance, I grew up in Harlem for the most part. I mean, outside of the time that I spent uh, in boarding school, I grew up in Flatbush, Brooklyn, and I grew up in Harlem. There was often an expectation of what it meant to be Black, what it meant to be really Black. And if you stepped outside of that expectation, some of y'all know, you were seen as other. You didn't really belong, as though there was only one way to express Blackness. There was only one way to be that. And understand that the reason why that was felt makes sense. If everything is stripped away from you and this is tribe, this is fam, you don't deviate from that. Otherwise, everything can fall apart. You won't have anything left. So again, that from a human perspective, from a survival perspective, that thinking makes sense. Except for far too many of us, that survivalist thinking sometimes meant don't show up too smart. Downplay who you are so you can fit in. Be cool. Don't act like other people. Don't talk like them, don't act like them, don't dress like them, don't be like them. No, we don't want to have nothing. And I mean, we don't want to have anything to do with oppressive behavior. Okay, let's be clear on that. We don't need to follow in those footsteps. But what if that thinking keeps you in a hole where you cut off opportunities that lead you to greater abundance? Because it's more important to cling to culture. What if what's necessary for you to create your more abundant life is to take a look at your clothing choices, your music choices? And I'm not saying anything is wrong here. So we're not not doing that. I got a closet full of a whole bunch of different types of clothes. And I wear them based on what's happening. What if your need to have this greater abundant life requires you to not hang out with certain people? What if it requires you to go to seminars and conferences and other things to learn in a different way? What if it requires you to change not who you are to be to pretend to be someone different, but what if it requires you to slough off what's not true about you for you to show up more as the I am? And see, and I'm not talking about like the superficial surface stuff like, oh, change your dialect, right? Or how you speak. I mean, while yes, my mother was a huge fan of, proper American speak, and my father's family came from the Bahamas where there was nothing but the Queen's English spoken. That don't mean that you need to mimic other people. But are you willing to learn how to create better communication skills for yourself? Period. Period. No matter how you sound, are you willing to work on your communication skills? Because creating this life that we want may require more than just, I'm just going to show up as I am. You know what I'm saying? I'm just going to show it up and it's just going to bam. It's funny because when you look at some of the folks in entertainment, like some of the people even that I let's go with who I grew up with, because I don't know what is happening right now. I don't know what's happening right now. But when I look at the folks that I grew up with, even in entertainment, and the ones who came from the same neighborhoods that I came from, it's so interesting to see how they shift and grow up and slough off some of the things that they thought were so, and some of the stuff that some of them are out there rapping, singing about, not even in their sphere, by the way, not even living that life at all. Not a substance sold, but rapping about it all day long. But as they decide to expand what they're doing and get into property or other investments or businesses, there's a growth that happens. There's a shift in how some of them start showing up in the world. Right? Part of that is maturity. Even Cardi B is showing up a little bit differently than she did before. Because abundance requires expansion. Continued abundance requires expansion. You can stay exactly the same you and create some abundance, and you will create the abundance at the level of which you are willing to expand. So what if like the Kratz brothers. Was my youngest son's favorite folks to watch. What if is a question they ask. What if your abundance requires you to shift your idea of who you think you are and how you show up in the world? What if you show up as a woman with a little extra, partly because that was a defense mechanism? What if all that just, that was your way of just letting people know that you're not the one, like shit. Don't start no Obina. And so that's just what it is. And you're showing up that way. What if your greater abundance requires you to examine that, to see if that's the truth of who you are? What if underneath you're actually softer, but you are equating that with punk, with like soft? Because when I was growing up, that you were not going to be soft. I don't know if there's anybody else in my age group. You were not going to show up soft. But what if your expansion requires you to examine that and to see if that is the truth of who you are, or if you can create a way for you to let that go? If need be, you pull her out when necessary. You understand? At the appropriate moment in time, pull that out the back pocket. Okay, we need that part. But what if that didn't need to be the first part that showed up just in case? And how can we create space for us to expand in that way so that we can create expanded abundance? I'm not a fan of assimilation. I don't care for us to assimilate into what is perceived to be the dominant culture. That is the culture of our oppressor. I'm not interested in that. Just like I'm not interested in trying to squeeze my chair into somebody else's table. Excuse me, can I get a seat at your table? Please. Over here, where my brothers and sisters building mad tables. Other folks watching to see how we do it. How they do that. Can we build it over here? You're going to take my design, build your tables over there, and then tell me I can't sit with you? That's cool. We're over here. But even in that, it's not about, can you learn how to be a different person? Can you learn how to change who you are to be someone different? To be liked, to fit in, to be palatable? Y'all, that is not what I teach. But can you expand your definition of who you are, who you think you are? And can you make space to the stuff that's not actually true? Because as you continue this journey, the change is inevitable if you want continued expansion of your abundance. It will require you to meet a new level of yourself that might be different from the perceptions you were given about what it meant to be Black. It doesn't mean you're no longer Black. It just means that your perception that you were given of what it means to be Black might shift. Expansion, expansive, beyond. So that's what I want you to consider today. What are the What are some of the cultural norms that you were taught? Some of the things that, "Oh, we don't do that here. That's not what we do." You know, "We don't travel." I've heard those things. "We don't swim." We do. What are these things that you've heard that you've just been like, "Oh, well, Black people don't do that." Now, there's some things we don't do, y'all. Okay? We don't go outside looking ashy. Okay? Let's keep it 100. let's let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. But what are some of the things that you can really look at and say, "Oh, I can expand my view of that." Yeah, we sit in boardrooms. Yes, we are CEOs of things. And yes, there are people out there who kind of what they think that's supposed to look like and they think we can't match is one of the reasons why we're not where we need to be. And we need to start redefining these things because this planet is for us. We need to start looking at what is preventing us outside of oppressive systems, but what are we internalizing that is preventing more of us from reaching for whatever our highest expression is, whatever that is. I cannot define that for you, and I won't assume to. I'm here to offer space to examine, to tweak, look at things differently. That's all. I will not tell you whether what you've decided is good or bad or, no, that's not acceptable. No. But what is it for you? Oh, we don't cry. Wow. Yeah, I grew up in New York City and oh, she's Black, but she speaks Spanish. Oh, she thinks she's better than this. I was an A student and in not in high school because I had decided that I was finished, I guess, with all that in junior high school. And apparently that was not acceptable. There were really some kids who really thought that I didn't think of myself as Black. And it actually hurt that the message had been internalized that we're not smart, that somehow we're stupid. I that hurt. I think when I look back as an adult at the time, I mean, I was definitely hurt. I was, why don't people like me? But as an adult, I look back and I think there were 12 and 13-year-old boys and girls who thought that getting A's and B's was being like white people. And I'm certain to this day, given our crappy education system, and I said it, that there are still students who feel that way. So, how can you expand your definition of what it means to be you? I'll read statement 10 again. Well, we don't go to therapy. That's a good one. Black people don't go to therapy. All you need is Jesus. Okay. Statement 10. I keep my mind and thoughts off this world, and I place my entire focus on God within as the only cause of my prosperity. I acknowledge the inner presence is the only activity in my financial affairs. As the substance of all things visible, I place my faith in the principle of abundance in action within me. All right, y'all, thank you so much for joining today. How can you expand your idea of yourself? And don't try to convince other people around you to expand their idea of themselves. That's you can present it to them and then that's their job. But how can you expand your idea of yourself so you can have continuous growth and abundance in your life? Okay. All right. All right. Have a good Friday, y'all. Bye.